A rough week for southern New England after 2 rounds of severe storms with a third heading this way. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm John DeLuca.
And I'm Tiffany Murphy. Meteorologists have been tracking Hurricane Lee for over a week now as it crept across the Atlantic and up the coast, with its effects expected to be felt here tomorrow. ABC 6 News reporter Josh Kurtman spent the day in New Bedford to see what officials there are doing to prepare.
Much of Hurricane Lee's potential impact still up in the air ahead of this weekend, but here in New Bedford, officials have already announced closures at beaches, boat launches, and possibly the airport. Local officials have been preparing for Hurricane Lee all week after days of storms, flooding, and even tornadoes. The main advice stays the same: stay inside unless you're told otherwise. And if an evacuation order is given, know where you're supposed to go. The main impacts of Lee are expected to start Friday night, and FEMA is already gearing up for the storm.
Liters of water, food as needed, cots for sheltering support if needed. And again, these are all things that we want to pre-position. Hopefully we won't have to use them, right? Hopefully everything's going to be relatively low key, low impacts, but we want to make sure that we have that stuff in a good space to where if we need it to be deployed, we can get it to where it needs to go.
Residents have seen hurricane damage before, and they're not taking any chances.
I lived here through Hurricane Bell, down on the other side of the high rise down here, down the street. I live right across the street from the Hurricane Dike. I watched this Hurricane Dike when I was a kid. There's nothing you can do. You can't control nature. When it hits you, it's going to hit you. And just prepare for the worst.
FEMA staff has already reached out to New England governors, letting them know help is available if needed.
The FEMA administrator has actually already spoken to the governor of Rhode Island, as well as the governors of Maine and Massachusetts, to make sure that they know that we are here and ready to support them as needed. We have actually our field office is up in New England. One of our regional offices is positioned in Boston, and then we have smaller area offices in the various states. So we have staff on the ground that are ready to roll if needed.
We should have a clearer picture of how Lee will impact New England Friday, ahead of any impacts expected later that night. Here in New Bedford, they're also looking at possibly closing the Hurricane Barrier Navigation Gate, but it'll all depend on what the U.S. Army Corps recommends. FEMA is also on standby for whatever may come this weekend. In New Bedford, Josh Kurtman, ABC 6 News.